Okay, so this evening I really thought I was going to be speaking about something else, but as it turns out, in my quest to find more related to that subject that I thought I was going to be speaking about, I found this. And so, what I want to talk about is this inspiration on this talk right now is coming from the Urantia book. From a Facebook posting of a friend, I listened to a video where a man said that he never hears anyone preach about, I believe it was the Sermon on the Mount. And the sermon that Jesus gave was pertaining to how God provides for the flowers in the field, the grass that grows from the ground, and that God, our Father in heaven, provides for these things. So if He provides that they have what they need, wouldn't He more so provide for us who are His children? So I was looking for that, and I suppose that this does play some kind of part in that. But what I came upon was reading the words of Jesus according to the Urantia book. And in different places, he was saying things like about how the Father takes care of, nurtures, loves, protects those who fear him. Well, that's a sticky subject for me, this word fear, because I know God is love, and so my Father in heaven is love. There's nothing there to fear, and I have spoken about this many, many times. And so then I was like, okay, something's not right here. Why would Jesus say those who fear him? So I started looking into that a little bit, and I went through, and as I go through the book and the teachings and the sermons, the speaking that Jesus did to his followers, to his disciples, to the different people that he came in contact with as he was fulfilling his mission here on this earth plane, he began to shift in his language. And so I might read a small excerpt from this to explain that. But what happened was, in the beginning, when he began to teach, he was using the same labels, concepts, and ideas that were more familiar to people. And as he progressed, he was planting seeds and just kind of like ushering them along into this new understanding, which was so very different than the old understanding of who God is, what God is. Because once we know our Father in heaven, we know what we are not. That helps us to understand what we are not. Once we know what we are not, then we can know what we are. As the conversations with God also state. So I'm just going to read a little piece of this. And it says here, and this is in the life of Jesus from the Urantia book, and this is Jesus speaking. You have been taught that you should fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of man. But I have come to tell you a new and higher commandment. I would teach you to love God and learn to do his will, for that is the highest privilege of the liberated sons of God. Your fathers were taught to fear God, the Almighty King. I teach you, love God, the all-merciful Father. In the kingdom of heaven, which I have come to declare, there is no high and mighty king. This kingdom is a divine family. The universally recognized and unreservedly worshipped center and head of this far-flung brotherhood of intelligent beings is my Father and your Father. I am his son, and you are also his sons. Therefore, it is eternally true that you and I are brethren in the heavenly estate, and all the more so since we have become brethren in the flesh of the earthly life. Cease then to fear God as a king or serve him as a master. Learn to reverence him as the Creator, honor him as the Father of your spirit youth, love him as a merciful defender, and ultimately worship him as the loving and all-wise Father of your more mature spiritual realization and appreciation. Out of your wrong concepts of the Father in heaven grow your false ideas of humility and springs much of your hypocrisy. And then it goes in to speak of the divine nature of man. Or the divine nature of the soul, okay, that indwells man. Again, labels, concepts, and ideas. So what I will say is, even in the teachings of Jesus, when he began, he used these labels and ideas and concepts of old, and gradually steered or elevated, raised the consciousness and understanding of those around him to this greater understanding. And by greater, I mean just a more accurate understanding. Earlier in the text, when he was speaking, he speaks of the strange things that occurred on this planet. And that's interesting. And, that's a subject all of itself. Strange things occurred on this planet. And if any of you listening to this are interested in extraterrestrials and ufology, you will know that there are stories about a history that predates our accepted recorded history, and that strange things did actually occur here. This text speaks of the Lucifer rebellion, and I would say that this text, the Urantia book, attributes the strange things that happen here to the Lucifer rebellion. And because of the vastness of universal reality, who knows which way or idea or concept to house these things in. Whichever one makes the most sense to you is okay. But what I would say is the truth of the matter, without using too many labels. Some strange things occurred on this planet that were unusual according to the blueprint diagram of how a planet is to be seated and how consciousness is to evolve. That is the base reality. No matter what story you gravitate toward to explain that. Okay. In that, there were, I will say, energetic forces at play that really molded the consciousness of man into a specific kind of ideology. So what does that mean, Missy? That means that there were workings that took place on this planet that skewed us to a belief system of God as being vengeful, wrathful, jealous, etc. To what end doesn't matter. the fact is, this is how it was done. We were taught these things that occurred. We were taught to see an almighty, terrifying deity that could wipe us out, and would if we were not dutiful children, okay? Um and it served a purpose for whoever for a time. Again, trying not to use too many labels and isolate myself into a big conspiracy block here. But that did occur. We were taught, we were guided, maybe even forcefully so, guided to believe in a God that was what God is not. And Jesus talks about that in these texts, and he says, look, when a child is small, you know, and I will speak of this, but from our human concept and our limited human understanding, if you have a small child, a toddler or whatever, and because I've been working with children, I can speak to this, and because I have a couple of my own, when children are small, you can say, we sit on the chair, we don't stand on the chair. And experience has shown me that I can say that same thing a dozen, 2 dozen times to the same child, and it makes no difference. So inevitably, I say it, but I end up having to go to the child and physically either take the child off the chair or sit the child down on the chair. Okay? So in a child's mind, I am this big, maybe even scary, sometimes, they're not happy. They're not happy with me when I do that. All right. There's a bit of a, so we'll get into, this is how the spiritually immature mind needs to associate concepts of something higher, God, and relate it to an experience that we are familiar with and we can understand, okay? And Jesus says, you were taught these things because the spiritual mind was immature. And with that immature mind, you were taught to fear God. And he explains it away in this way. So from that perspective, if I look at it from where he was speaking from when he was talking to one of his followers or his disciples about that, I would say that because these manipulations of our consciousness took place, manipulations that steered us into a certain belief system, into what God is not, strong measures were taken, a very strong-handed approach, thank you, taken to keep us from destroying ourselves. Okay. And that as the consciousness rose energetically, then we were receptive enough, we were emotionally intelligent enough to begin to apply and assimilate more. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say truth, but what I want to say is a more accurate understanding or depiction of truth. Now, we get into, so there is that. Some of the things that are going on the planet today, I get very frustrated with, because I would like everyone to know the absolute truth, and I would like it to be brought out, and I would like it to be just done and over with already. But there are those who believe that, and it is true. There are some people here having a life experience on this planet at this time that would not survive, would not survive that awareness, that coming to light, if it happened overnight. And so what I see in the world today is this gradual gradual releasing of information. It is being done that way to try and, in an attempt to minimize the fallout, in an attempt to minimize casualties, in a sense. Yes, there are those that believe that if the truth came out tomorrow, the whole truth, the wholeness of it, that we would have absolute anarchy and complete breakdown, and that everything many of us have been working for over thousands of years to correct the situation, that much of our efforts would have been in vain and it would be lost. So, even though my ego wants the truth to come out, I know what's going on, and so I defer to my Father in heaven, because the truth is this, and I have been counseled this many times. I have been told this many times from Spirit, that the information that is available to me, that has been available to me, is available to everyone. If they really want truth, it is truth they will find. And this is what I see. Many are just comfortable believing a story that they are comfortable believing. And it isn't really truth they seek. They seek validation of what they already believe. So, because I've been a seeker, I've been a truth seeker for my whole life, I would say. My mind is very analytical. And even though, in my spiritual practice, in my spiritual practice, I defer from my mind as much as I can to try and be in my heart space, my Christed self space. But my mind works well. And so I do realize that I have been conditioned, based on however many factors, that when I came into this life, through, if you know anything about astrology, we have the planetary influences and all that stuff, and all of that does play a part, because they're all energetic influences. And when you come into a body, or you come in to be born into this life, those energetic influences that are positions of planets, where we are in the galaxy, all of these things do have an energetic effect on the energy that you hold inside this vessel. So even though I can't explain it on a minutia level, I can explain it in that way. And so astrology is definitely, there is it's a science, even if science won't recognize it. Okay. And it does play a huge part in the um, the experiences that we have in this life, our personality, the um, skills and limitations, challenges, all these things. It has an effect on all of that. And we choose a time to be born, and I would say more, we choose the alignments to be born that will help facilitate us to accomplish whatever it is that we're working to accomplish here, whatever that goal is. um nothing is accidental. It's all divinely inspired and orchestrated. It's an incredible process um that my human mind can only feel in some level, some semblance of totality. My mind can focus point by point, but then as the points start to mound up, I get overwhelmed. So I have a hard time, but it is a difficult concept to explain. Having said that, um, I came into this life having certain skills, which we all have, but some of us just naturally have them without. It's just like the people that are naturally, we're all naturally intuitive, yes. Some of us have to work harder at it. Some people, they just have it. They just have it. And they come in with that gift. And some of us have to work through blocks of a certain kind to remember that gift. And some of us, because we are all gifted, some of us are gifted in certain ways and some of us are gifted in other ways, and that's the beauty of why when we work together this all works. But having said that, I have been accused by some people of lacking critical thinking skills, which, you know, it's possible. It's possible. But I really don't think that's what's going on. But you all have to formulate your own opinion about things. So, having said that, when I look at the spiritual way things have been done, and I look at how things are trickling out today, I see the equivalent in Jesus using the concept of God as it was when he began his teaching, and how he very gently, over a period of time, began to introduce these new, higher, energetic concepts of who and what God is, and kind of bring us out of, because that was the whole goal, was to bring us out of that negative energetic frequency through more love being felt and actualized. And so I found that really interesting as I was looking for something completely different, and all of this then came into play. So in the world today, I am beginning to hear stories that I heard, has it been 2 years? Yes. Yeah, it's been 2 years. So 2 years ago, I heard some stories that have since come true, regarding the state of the world and things that were going to occur. I will use this as an example. 2 years ago, a story came out, and it was quickly buried, I guess. I did hear it, where there was going to be a vaccine, or vaccines were going to be developed, and that there would be an invisible tattoo that would be administered to the people who got vaccinated that would not be perceivable by the human eye, but if it was run under a black light, it would be visible. And now, coming out in the news and whatever, they're telling people, and I don't know if this is just in the alternative media or if it's also in the mainstream media, that there is a component to these vaccines, or at least some of them, that is called luciferase, I believe. And it is a bioluminescent, and it supposedly is detectable under a black light. It must have some function, because why else would it be in there? And so, this is a story that I heard 2 years ago. And when I heard the story, I remember it, so something about it rang that it had truth to me. And now that's trickling out in the news. I haven't seen any people glowing in the dark, but I have heard enough to know that that's going on. Because this luciferase is a bioluminescent, and why, we have to ask ourselves why that's in there. Now, there are people that say that ingredient is used to treat a multitude of things, and perhaps that is the case. I just find that is a really interesting coincidence that I don't believe in. I don't believe in coincidences. So, and that's probably another reason I don't believe in coincidences. So, there was something else that has come out recently about some of these ingredients that are present in these vaccines. And, when people were talking a year and a half ago or so about nanoparticles, and, and this was all like, yeah. And now we know that that's true. That has been proven. And it's becoming more mainstream, this information. So now here's my word of caution. My word of caution is this. Me personally, this I will use the luciferase, okay, this bioluminescent. I will use this as the example because it's easy to use as an example. This is an ingredient in one or more of these vaccines. It is a bioluminescent. It is. Now, that does not mean that it's absolutely true that it's being used as a detection system to see if you have been vaccinated or not. What I will say is this. We will know that if people start being scanned, won't we? We will know if that's true or not if we begin to see black lights going up in different locations. I mean, at this point, I'm not willing to say for sure that's what's going on, because perhaps there is another reason for that to be in there. It's possible. I don't know. It's possible, So, I mean, if I want to look on the bright side of things or on the positive side of things, what I can say is bioluminescence, right? So somebody said, well, this is kind of like some of the ocean, the marine life we have down in deep sea that has this bioluminescence, and maybe that's possible too. And hey, I sometimes use algae products on my face in skincare and, seaweed and stuff like that. So maybe it's not a total bad thing, but I'm just going to hold that and see what happens. If people start getting scanned with black lights, what does that mean? Doesn't mean, to me, doesn't really mean anything, right? There are a lot of people who might jump to some conclusions about that. I don't know. It could just be a control system in the sense of, well, that way we know just really how many people were vaccinated and how many people weren't. And by control, I mean like to keep a record of how many people are vaccinated. So if 10 people pass by, how many of those 10 people got vaccinated? I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of that could be or would be. But I understand why it would cause some concern in people. I do. Because why? The reason it causes concern in people is because no one has come out and said, hey, we put this luciferase in here and here's why it's in there. If they have, I haven't heard that story. Maybe they did and I just didn't hear it because I don't watch TV. So if any of you guys have heard the positive spin on why something like that is in there, I welcome your comments. So, because I don't really have a feeling on it, though I understand why there are people going, hey, wait a minute, what is this and why is it there? There are some other ingredients that, we know are pretty harmful to the body that have been noted as being in there, cited as being in there. I don't know how many of them. I don't know which ones. I just know that there are things in there that are rather toxic or not great. But hey, we've been putting toxic stuff in the human body for a long time. Most of us don't realize it. We're not on a conscious level willing it on ourselves. We're not saying, hey, yeah, do this thing and yeah, let me eat that, and right? But from the realm of spirit, you see, we all agreed to be here and we are participating in some way in it because we are a collective consciousness. And if we were choosing love in every moment, negative or low vibrational energetic experiences would not be happening. It would not be occurring. So I'm here. I must be participating in what's going on in some fashion, whether it be with my thoughts, my feelings, my, so, and there's a lot of talk about that too now in the spiritual communities, about being really mindful of how we're feeding this negative energy. And so I'm not doing that. I'm like, well, isn't it interesting that this ingredient happens to be in there? Isn't it interesting? But I'm not going to sit and go down the, oh my gosh, they're going to this and they're going to that and this is how they're going to know. And, yeah, okay. So there is that. And I do have to say that because it just came in. So, at first they were doing the vaccine ID cards, right? Well, smart people, they learned we're just going to duplicate these things because they're like nothing. We're just going to duplicate them. Well, so maybe this luciferase was a way of saying, you know what, we want to know for sure that you did, and this is how we're gonna know. I don't know, but then my issue with that is, if they're not telling people, hey, by the way, just so you know, gonna give you this shot. We want you to know something about you is gonna glow and under a black light, so we know you got it. And if they're telling people that, if that's the goal, and they're telling people that, then it's that person's choice. But if that's the goal, is to put a marker on them, and they're not telling people, I see a problem there. But again, I'm aware that it's there. I don't know the motive for it being there, so I can't speculate too far. But it's all about intent. It's all about intent. And again, if you guys know, if you know why it's there, if you know why it's there, and not just speculation on, well, this is what we think, because we all have an opinion, right? But if you are following the science, and you can give a really good explanation for what that's supposed to do that's helpful for the body, I would love to hear it. Because I don't watch TV. So if you don't tell me, I'm not going to know. Unless I try to research it myself, and I just don't care that much to do it. Because I have no intention of getting it. So I don't need to look at why it's there, because I have no intention to get it. But if you guys know already, because you're into that, and I would love to hear it. So, and I appreciate it, and I would actually appreciate knowing that. So, in peace and love, may you be blessed.